This is another in the first read series where I read a poem by a poet I don't know or know very little about and just have the sheer joy of a first experience of that person's work. I might misread it, I might read it differently later on, but this is just that first reading before I know anything, before I can read the complexity that happens sometimes when you read the rest of the work. This one is in Narrative Magazine. It's by Elizabeth Metzger. I know the name, but I don't know the poet at all, so I'm going to look. I just flip through these at random. I haven't really read anything. I'm tempted by this Thalassophobia because I studied ancient Greek for a long time, but I'm going to skip it. Headless woman opens her sleeve. That sounds good, but I'm going to land myself here on the Intimacy of Volcanos. I just like the sound of that. Like, how can you be intimate with a volcano? What does that mean? I just like that. So every time I look at a new poem, I look at the form first. I like to kind of see the shape of form, see if I'm dealing with something traditional. The lines vary quite a bit in here, so I'm not assuming this is a traditional one. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 lines, so it doesn't look like a traditional form. It looks more like an open form, which is, totally fine. I just like to know that before I get going. I don't see sill, sparrow, evening, vault. I don't see a lot of rhyming or anything like that going on. So I'll just skip it and look for techniques as I go. They told me to stay away from the sill, but I raised a pane and slipped one sparrow, black and shivering, into my mouth. I like the beginning of this. We don't know who they told me. We don't know who the they are. I mean, it almost feels like parental or something, like stay away from the windowsill. Or just a warning to stay away from the sill. What's at a windowsill, like the outside coming in. But I raised the pane and slipped one sparrow, black and shivering, into my mouth. What's this black sparrow sitting there? And why would you put it into your mouth? It's this really kind of oddly intimate or oddly like ultra destructive behavior, but it's interesting. Like you put it in your mouth, something that sings, you put it in your mouth. There, I kept it there all evening, wetting its wings with my tongue. But you kind of know at this point that you're not in a real world narrative. You're metaphor. You're in a metaphoric place at this point because you literally couldn't do this, but it's telling us something, right? I kept it there all evening. The bird there, wetting its wings on my tongue. There's a nice, alliterative quality here with the W's, letting it peck at the vault of my throat. So this bird sits there and pecks at the vault of the throat, which is, it's an interesting way to describe the throat, is like where you come up with your words, where you do it. It's almost as if the bird is pecking there in the throat where you make your voice heard. I could taste the color of lava, which is interesting for a bird because, you don't really associate birds with lava flow, lava rock, any of that stuff. But this one is, and it somehow has come in. It's contagious and bitter. It's seeping into the person there. They were warned not to open the seal, the speaker was, but now they've let the bird in, and it's lava, contagion, bitterness kind of connects with them. Now when light goes and the room grows a wall and even wood becomes restless, and the light is going away, this in between time, between, day and light, finding something, right? It wept in the middle of my mouth. The bird here is weeping into one's mouth, which is ultimately, like I said earlier, like this kind of super intimate thing. That's tears in your mouth. It sharpened my breath into little teeth. There's the kind of violent images again, with it not necessarily violent, but harsh images. Sharpen my breath into teeth, so turning the breath into teeth. Breath is, of course, seat of where the words come from for knowing. I mean, what does this do? It almost feels like a knowledge of the, like a Garden of Eden thing. Like the sparrow, don't let it in. You let it in, and it gives you a knowledge. But this is very like dark and bitter and contagious knowledge. It was loveless, and I would not have trusted anyone. it was loveless, and I would not. Are these connected at all? Like that, the bird being loveless, does that connect to the speaker? Not would not have trusted anybody because of the lovelessness. Like has it already contagion already spilt over after I was thirsty all the time? I'm not really sure why. Because the wings wet the tongue. I mean, the tongue wet the wings because the weeping of the mouth came in, because you have that experience of knowing that comes through on this bird. How does that relate to volcanoes? Maybe the color of lava from the birds, this kind of intimacy with this, hugely destructive force that can transform a landscape, really quickly. This kind of intimacy, which is hard to have with it, this kind of knowledge of it, of this, primal power. I like this one. I think I might read this completely differently if I came back to it with more knowledge of the poet's work. I think there's a lot of interesting images here that really make me want to know more about this poet's work. There's this sexuality, there's this violence in it, there's this mythic quality. All of these are interesting, and the poet really does have a great way with language, with a litter of qualities. The room grows, a wall, even wood becomes restless. You have the R's and the W's there, and then you have a wept in the next thing. Very nice sounds of this. So, like I said, Elizabeth Metzger.